Excellent. Hello and welcome everybody to the halfway point of CubeWise Innovation Week 2024. It's great to see you all and thank you very much for joining this very exciting session here today where we'll be launching Atmosphere and looking forward to kind of diving into the details with the CubeWise team very shortly on that. My name is James and I'll be your host today, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Nicholas, Rose and Marius. And as I said, together we'll be launching Atmosphere, which is a new CubeWise Innovation Lab solution, which will be incubated in the US, in similar ways to how we incubated Power Connect, which actually got released globally on Monday. And we'll be kind of talking about Atmosphere as we go into today's session. And it's a really exciting new innovation to kind of help us, improve the speed, improve the performance, the reliability of cloud-to-cloud integrations. And we're going to talk about that, very shortly. But before we kind of introduce the CubeWise team in a bit further detail and kind of get into Atmosphere, I did kind of just want to revisit, why we're doing CubeWise Innovation Week and why this is important. And I guess kind of, in my words, we're kind of wanting to launch CubeWise Innovation Week because I guess it's in our DNA at CubeWise to want to share our knowledge as it relates to all the exciting innovation that is happening at CubeWise, and we want to share that knowledge with the broader planning analytics community, and also demonstrate all these great the great technological advancements that are happening around planning analytics, whether it's with version 12 and the planning analytics engine, with Atmospheres we'll be talking about today, and the integration endpoints. Nicholas will be shortly talking about tomorrow's session. We'll be talking about DevOps, and we'll be talking about how to big parallelizing of data movement and multi-threading. So there's all these great topics that are happening. We wanted to kick off the year 2024 and kind of share that with the broader planning analytics community. So, and looking forward to that. Okay, so as I said, before we get into the kind of Atmosphere and what we're going to be talking about and introducing the team a bit further, let's kind of have a quick recap of what we've covered so far with Innovation Week. So on Monday, these recordings are all available through our Innovation Week website, and we'll share the links shortly with you all. But on Monday, myself and several others from the CubeWise team, we're talking about Power Connect, which is our planning analytics to Power BI integration connector. And again, that was incubated here in the US, and that was globally launched on Monday to the rest of the world, which has been great to see. And so we're already seeing, customers, great excitement in Europe and in Asia and Australia picking that up. And that's been a really great achievement there by the CubeWise team globally in bringing that to market. And then yesterday we had Marius, Ryan Clapp from Amazon, and Jason and Shane from the CubeWise team talking about Planning Analytics Engine and TM1 2.0. And so, a lot of you, this is a quick introduction about Marius. He's the TM1 product manager with CubeWise, and he's based out of Switzerland. And Marius, just to bring you in, what was the highlight out of yesterday's session for you?
Yesterday, we spoke a lot about the changes with V12 and the possibilities. And I think Ryan summed it up quite well when he said the possibilities are amazing. The fact that V12 runs on a cluster should provide much better availability, high availability, scalability, performance. It's a much a big advance. And from TM1 we spoke about that as well. We just released version 2 like 2 weeks ago. It's also a big milestone. We've had 15 contributors from around the world. So it's really becoming more mature as an open source project. And there's also a lot of great features. I would recommend people to check out the release notes.
Excellent. Yeah, no, a big congratulations to you and the team, because there is a community of developers now, as you said, kind of contributing to that. And, big shout out to all of them who participated, and really, great achievement in delivering TM1 2.0 to the market. And it's obviously compatibility and supportability with version 12. Is very exciting. So yeah, high five to the team there. And again, that recording is available for those that have registered or who want to watch it on demand as well. And now that was yesterday's session, and then kind of looking ahead, we have Rose on the line, who's a CubeWise implementation manager, and we have Nicholas also on the line, who is a solution engineer with CubeWise. And I guess Nicholas, you'll be kind of Nicholas and Rose will be joining us tomorrow on the DevOps session, which is going to be really interesting. But like Nicholas, you maybe just set it up for everyone. Do you want to share a little bit about what's going to be covered tomorrow on the DevOps session for us?
Yes, sure. So what we're going to be covering tomorrow, basically, it's there are some examples of how TM1 can actually integrate with a full CI/CD implementation that you might have in your company or that you want to build. So what we will show is from ticket managing all the way to code deployment, how all of that is integrated and how TM1 code can move seamlessly with unit testing and system testing from a ticket created in Jira to all the way to a TM1 production server.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. And I believe Ian Boltz will also be on the call there as well, Rose. So do you want to just maybe touch on some of the things that Ian will be discussing as it relates to Arc Plus?
Yeah. So with Arc Plus, one of the most recent versions, there's a new test center, which allows you to do tests within TM1. So that can be unit testing as well as system testing. And so Ian's going to be doing a demo of that to show that great functionality that's being added.
Looking forward to that. And there's another great innovation there from the CubeWise code team. And looking forward to Ian Boltz, who works from our UK office, and looking forward to him joining the US-based team to kind of talk about this topic, DevOps, and how we can kind of continue to look to do better in terms of managing and deploying and testing your planning analytics and TM1 code. So that's tomorrow's session, and then to wrap up the week, Nicholas and I will be back on the mic, and also with Jason, where we wrap up CubeWise Innovation Week, and also ask one of my favorite questions is how fast is fast enough when loading data into planning analytics, and also between TM1 cubes. So that's going to be a really interesting discussion where we'll be talking about different techniques and considerations when loading data into planning analytics, whether it's on-prem or on cloud data sources. And also, for example, big allocation models or big data transfers that you need to do within, a TM1 instance. Parallel loading, multi-threading, how you kind of consider locking, where does save data sit within these things, where does transaction logging fit? So there's, at the enterprise level with, big data movement, there are some kind of important considerations to be mindful of. And also Nicholas will be showing some different techniques on how to analyze the performance of your turbo integrated processes, because that's really important, is to kind of how to measure that and to benchmark it, because from time to time your data does change shape, and so therefore the way in which you approach big data movement does need to change, and so we're going to be talking about that on Friday. So that will be really interesting topic there, one of my favorites. Okay, so that's kind of a quick overview of Innovation Week and all things like that. In terms of just some housekeeping, we will be kind of obviously monitoring the chat, and I did pose a Q&A question there, so feedback is definitely welcome, and please ask questions as we go through. Your feedback is very much welcomed, and that helps us to better understand your considerations and requirements, and we want to make it as interactive as possible. All of these sessions are being recorded and will be shared following the completion of today's session as well. So, and they'll be available on demand if you wanted to share the links with some of your colleagues who weren't able to make it today. So that's a quick kind of introduction. So let's kind of actually get into today and get into the kind of the atmosphere presentation. So I guess, Marius, do you want to kind of like set it up and explain to the audience, what is atmosphere, and why are you so excited about it? And I think it's fair to say all of us at CubeWise are very excited about this. But do you want to share a little bit of an overview of what atmosphere is for the audience, please?
Yes, sure. Happy to do that. So Atmosphere, you could think of this as a collection of pre-built serverless functions specifically for planning analytics. Serverless, what does that mean? It means you don't have to install anything. They're in the cloud and you can just use them. And for the most part, these functions are integrations. So if you need to connect your planning analytics model with other systems, you can use one of those serverless functions. That's very powerful because we think that the future is multi-cloud. And we think that TM1 Planning Analytics will benefit greatly from seamless data exchange with other systems. For me personally, I'm excited about the technology. This whole cloud deployment, containerization, it's an exciting topic. Also, we're using Python, which I love, and that's why I built TM1 with many other people together. So that is exciting, and I think potentially this can have a bigger impact than TM1 even, because TM1 is more like an enabler, right? I mean, Ryan clapped yesterday in the session. He called it our favorite SDK for TM1. It helps you to build stuff, and Atmosphere is like sort of delivers immediately. It feels more like Bedrock in a way.
Yeah, definitely, and it was great to hear Ryan, as a customer of Cubewise, and obviously a big advocate of planning analytics across the global community. Talking about some of how they're using Planning Analytics Engine, and also some of the great work that he's contributed to, and others to TM1. So, yeah, it's just exciting times. And Nicholas, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that's working with lots of different integrations with different applications. I think Atmosphere is really great in those regards, because it provides us with the ability to just simply connect, right? So we don't have to investigate each of the APIs of each application that we need to connect to. It just works, and we can focus on what to do with the data, which is the important piece. Not how to get the data in, but what the data contains. So yes, I think this is a game changer for sure.
Excellent. And what about Rose, from your perspective? Obviously, kind of as an implementation manager for Cubewise here in the North American region, and having seeing kind of the Atmosphere evolve now over probably about, I think, 12 months. I think, Marius, you maybe have been working on it. What's your kind of like insights from a day-to-day perspective that you could share?
I mean, I think it's fantastic of how we can have some of these functions that would normally take a fair bit of time for one of our developers to work on, right? Maybe that's connecting to SharePoint to pull data, or that's doing a complex financial calculation, that we can then have this be done in just a matter of minutes, right? There's a bit of setup, but it's so much faster, and there's a lot less development and testing time required from our team.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I guess accelerated time to value that we're going to be seeing here, and there is a degree of where people would be doing some of these integrations previously with custom code. They're kind of being able to kind of call from a library. In many ways, I guess, Marius, how people kind of approach Bedrock, the Cubewise open source TI library. So, I mean, do you want to kind of maybe touch on that? And I guess maybe let's start jumping into some of the details and presentation around what is Atmosphere.
Yes, I think TM1 already made it easier to integrate, but with systems like Snowflake or Salesforce. But still, you'd have to sit down and write a script, get to know the API, like what we mentioned before. And that's the big difference between Atmosphere and writing your custom Pi scripts. And I think that's maybe a good moment to start off the demo.
Yeah, please do. Let's jump in.
All right, so we have an example here of, we are a company that sells widgets, but now we wanted to expand, and we've taken over another company that sells board games. And so our management has asked us to be able to bring in all of that information into our system, so that way they can, one, incorporate it into our quarterly reporting out, and also so that way we can make decisions about how profitable this business is that we've acquired. So there's a couple things we know we need. We need customer product information, store information. That's all being stored in Salesforce. We know that we have actuals that have occurred for over the past couple of years. We want to get that from Snowflake. We want to make decisions about, how profitable, where do we see areas of improvement? So that's where we want to do some financial calculations. We can use TM1 for that. And then management is going to look at that and kind of make decisions about the growth and the forward looking of our board game sales company. And so they've proposed an alternate hierarchy, and we're going to be pulling that from SharePoint. So Marius, do you want to just jump right in and show how we can do this with Atmosphere?
Yes, it looks like the data is all over the place. Without Atmosphere, we'd not manage to get this done in 30 minutes. But let's see how this can be accomplished using the atmosphere functions. So we created a small PAW report that we're going to click through. First of all, we need to bring in the metadata coming from Salesforce. So here at the top, we can see our product dimension, which is the board games, and it's all empty. At the bottom, I already brought in the stores dimension, also from Salesforce, using the same function, just different parameters to load it. So this is our Salesforce instance. Here we can see our products, and there are certain attributes by product that we want to load with the product itself for the dimension. For instance, the age and the players. We want to bring all that information to TM1. So the way Atmosphere works is that the function is deployed, and it is available for you to call with an API key. And you call it from a TI process. So from a TI sort of development perspective, like we said, it feels a lot like Bedrock because you're calling a process and providing arguments. And in this case, you need to provide a query for Salesforce. And this is it's called SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language, but it's really like a dumbed down version of SQL. You're just saying select the attributes that you want from what table in Salesforce. And then ultimately you have to say towards which dimension this should be written and whether or not you want to unwind the existing dimension. It's pretty straightforward. It's really like a no-code approach. And then we have to each of these functions, there's some additional bells and whistles that we put in to make your life better and easier. For instance, in Salesforce, the fields, they have the custom fields, they have this sort of ugly suffix __C for custom, which you don't want to see in TM1. So if I'm pressing OK now, it's going to load in the data, it's going to update our dimension, and it's not going to include this __C. It's going to put a different attribute name.
So Marius, I know you're bringing in this product information and it's just loaded. Down below, you already brought in the store data from Salesforce as well. Obviously, we have some of those attributes similar to the age and players that we just looked at for the product, but we also have a hierarchy showing for here. So I'm curious, is that also being brought in from Atmosphere, that hierarchy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because we wanted to build Atmosphere in a way that it fits all the TM1 models. And so we don't enforce a certain approach on you. So what we can do is we have different, we call them run modes. So you can write straight into a dimension, or you can also write into a file that is then available in your TM1 instance. We can do that with TM1 so that you can consume it in a second step with a turbo integrator process. And for this particular example, in the store dimension, what I did is I used Atmosphere and wrote into the stores dimension, and then I called a Bedrock process to build out the hierarchy nicely from existing attributes, which I think is the easiest way to go about it.
That's pretty neat. And I guess maybe just to go a bit further on that. So you're obviously working with a variety of different data sources over the years, as we all have on this call. There's standardized tables, and then there's customized tables. And how do you approach that with an Atmosphere approach, the customization of a table?
Yeah, because in the end, every user is going to use the same function, but they want different data, right? And they have different tables. And each of these functions have parameters. And we build out the functions so that with the parameters, you can customize the query to get the data that you want in the shape that you need. So we've solved all of that with parameterization.
So that was where you were kind of like, it's a typical turbo integrated process where you had it on the screen before, where there was those parameters. That's where the I guess the TM1 administrator as such would, or power user would kind of be aware of what tables they need to grab, and they would kind of codify, insert those parameters or those table names as a parameter.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that creates a lot of flexibility. I definitely think of that as a great solution. Thank you.
All right. Shall we move on to the actuals?
Please do.
So the actuals, we need to bring it from Snowflake. So we already built the cube and we already built a dashboard, but it doesn't show anything because the cube is entirely empty. And for the cube, we've got the structure that you can see on the right. Got a version, a time, a store, a product, and then a count dimension and a measure. Let's take a look at the actuals. So the actuals is stored in Snowflake, and we can find our data in the table called sales. And the data is already shaped for us, for our cube. Here, when looking at the table, we can see that it's quite small, 21,000 records. And looking at the preview, it matches quite nicely with our cube in TM1. In fact, it's exactly the same shape. Like for each column, there's a dimension in TM1. So this is a happy case.
There's
Now let's
quick
go ahead.
question on that. I noticed there that you have multiple months, and then you said that the data set is quite small in this case. But how would it? Can I just feed every month in parallel? How does it scale?
Absolutely. Like that would be the trick to. I mean, we've built it out in a way that it's performing really well, and because we've done a lot of integrations over the years, and we've acquired a lot of like knowledge on making these things fast, and TM1 by itself is really fast. But if you ever get in a situation that you need more performance, then you can parallelize. And because Atmosphere is built as serverless functions on an AWS cluster, it parallelizes effortlessly and really well. So like you said, we could, if there's 4 years, then we could break it up into 48 months and load them all at the same time. And so that's one of the nice features. And the best thing about it is that when you parallelize, it doesn't run on your TM1 server, so it doesn't sort of like steal CPU resources from the TM1 server. It like runs on the AWS cluster and just gives you the data. So it's a really nice feature.
And maybe just another follow-up question there, and do encourage people to kind of add some questions to the chat. So thank you for that. But the typical way in which we've always connected to a data source, let's think of like Oracle Financials or etc., is like ODBC. So I mean, how would you kind of answer the question? Where does ODBC data connectivity sit in relation to the Atmosphere approach?
Nico, do you want to take that question, given the changes to V12 that are coming?
Yeah, so, well, the thing is, with V12, there is no more ODBC connection. What we do have is, so whatever data you ingest into TM1 has to be OData compliant. So IBM released this ODBCIS feature that would basically, when installed in a given server with ODBC connections, it will convert them to OData compliant. Therefore, it can be fetched into TM1. But I think the key difference here between ODBC and Atmosphere process, even though you can make parallel calls to feed from an ODBC, say 1 per month, the ODBC has a tunnel, right? So there's a certain amount of records that can transfer at a certain point. It doesn't matter that you call it 50, 100 times. Whereas this case is different. And that's generally an approach that was taken by us when you had to load 48 months. You would prefer to do that as a file, not with an ODBC connection, because it has a restriction. This Atmosphere functions, it works like if you were to loading from files. So it's that more performant.
So then how are we making that connection then to Atmosphere?
Oh, of course. Like you can't just use it, right? What I didn't show in the demo, just to save time, is that you have to register your connection details in advance. And so just like there is a process to call the execution, to call the load, there's another process to register a connection. For instance, for SharePoint, which we're going to see in a second, you need to register a client ID and the client secret. And Atmosphere is powered by AWS. It uses the AWS Secrets Manager, and this is where the information is stored. And does that answer your question, Rose?
Yeah, and why don't we walk through this, and then while this is running, then we can talk about how we do the security for that.
Yes, I'm sure everyone saw the query, right? It's just a SQL query, and if you want to write straight to a cube, you have to make sure that the result set from the SQL query matches your cube. I just wanted to mention that. Regarding security, I think that's a key part, and that's what everyone asks about. So in terms of communication security, Atmosphere uses HTTPS, which is the same protocol that's used between the TM1 server and Excel, or TM1 server and PAW and your browser. So in terms of like the communication transfer, it's pretty secure. And then in terms of like the application itself, what comes in really handy is that it is serverless and stateless, right? It is a containerized function that spawns up, it does its job, and then it's destroyed. So it doesn't memorize, doesn't persist any information. And that makes it really secure.
And if something doesn't work, how would you know if it doesn't leave any traces?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Exactly, because it's stateless, and it also it doesn't log by default. But if it fails, for instance, if we had we could do that if we have time in the end. If we had provided like a wrong SQL query, like something that like referenced a column that doesn't exist, then what we try to do is mimic like the bedrock behavior, so that there will be a process error file which still exists in version 12. So that if you provide wrong arguments, then what Atmosphere does is it fails, of course, but then it writes like a meaningful message into a TM1 error log file that you can then use. And that, for the most part, we think that should help you troubleshoot. If it doesn't, then you can turn on logging and then retrieve the logs from the AWS instance. And of course, unlike TM1 Pi, this is a commercial product, right? So if you really get stuck, you can open a ticket with us, and we'll help you solve it.
Excellent. And we've got some really good questions coming in around, connectivity to SAP HANA, and I kind of mentioned that we're currently working on that, and that's definitely in the labs, if I could say it like that. Other questions around, planning analytics to planning analytics data connectivity, and I shared the link in the chat there because that is a feature that is currently supported, and it's a very common feature that we've implemented across people who are transitioning to the cloud, and they need to connect, planning analytics local to planning analytics on-prem or cloud to cloud instances. So it's a really good question. And the other one is, Databricks. So that's for us, Snowflake, Databricks, SAP HANA, they're kind of very popular data sources for us at the moment, aren't they, Marius? But in terms of, I guess, the roadmap, which we'll talk about as well today.
We'll talk about the roadmap. I can just say we're looking into this. We're ambitious. We plan to cover most of the relevant data sources, and SAP is something we look into, Databricks as well. Someone asked about TM1 to TM1 when they're on different servers, and the answer is yes, this works.
Fully supported, indeed.
All right,
to you.
So I see we have our data loaded, right? So I can tell right away, this all-time gross profit. It looks like, is it London and Miami are the two that don't appear to be profitable over time? And in fact, if I look at last year's gross profit, I'm kind of seeing the same thing. Am I reading this right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it seems like management is probably going to want to look at those stores in terms of, is this viable to be keeping these stores open, right? And also this chart of our product by store, my son would argue that Catan is only popular in Macau and Tokyo because that's his favorite game to play right now. But so this surprises me a little, but that is interesting that we see a little bit different variety of stores or games across different locations.
Indeed. There seems to be a different demand over the regions. All right, let's before we bring in more data, let's take a look at the data by manager on an aggregated level. So here we can see the gross profit in the top by stores and by manager, and on the bottom we can see the CapEx by store and by manager.
So I know management has said that they would like going forward to promote 3 of the current managers and kind of change the structure a little bit. So Nico, looking at this, right, do you feel like you could make a recommendation of who that would be?
I think Vivi Stander probably. It's one of them, and Supak and Sputzi.
Yeah,
right?
those 3 those three seem to have the best gross profit over all time.
But by CapEx, though, not sure.
Yeah, so this feels like a great case of where we might want to do, something like an IRR calculation to be able to help us see, who's been making the best use of their funds.
Indeed. And Atmosphere can just do that for us. And I think an IRR calculation is a good scenario because this is something that's quite tricky to do with like out-of-the-box functionality in planning analytics. But Atmosphere has a calculation engine which can calculate that measure and many other things. Again, it's just a click of a button. We're calling a TI process. And what we have to provide is a source view and a target view, so that we have to tell the calculation engine where to find the time series with the cash flows. And we do that. You don't see those views here on the screen, but they exist, of course. And in the source view, we can see by manager and by store the cash flows, the initial negative one, the CapEx, and then the profits for each period. And then in the target view, you're sort of telling the calculation engine where to put the numbers.
And I know, right, from a prior company I worked with, right, that we had a situation where we were basically having to do Excel calculations in a perspectives report that was then uploaded to TM1 Web and then doing DB sends. So the fact that we're doing this with that TM1 Pi calculation, that certainly eases that and, solves a lot of complications of development. So in looking at this, we can see that Weavy Stunder has a negative IRR, but Bavidoe is 0. Is that right?
Absolutely. He has had a loss in each period, so you cannot even calculate an IRR. I verified that in Excel, and it is simply impossible to calculate an IRR. And that's one of those nice features that if you want to trace a calculation, what the calculation engine does is that it doesn't just put a number in a cell. It also put like a little cell annotation on the cell that explains how the number is calculated. And so what you can do if you're a skeptical person, you could take all these numbers, put them into Excel and recalculate. And indeed, the result is none. It cannot be calculated. So that explains the 0.
And that's a really good feature, I think, from working on many RFPs over the years and kind of talking to customers about that traceability of the calculation. I think it's a very kind of user-friendly kind of component here, I think, as it relates to this. And again, the traceability of how did we arrive to that number? Traditionally, if it was a rule-based number, you could go right-click and and have a look at the rule, and that's another great way to do it. But with TI-based numbers, as this is, so to speak, that annotation there of the maths again gives that user that confidence and that ability to kind of query that how did we arrive at that number. So I think, again, from a usability perspective, as a user myself with Planning Analytics, I think that's a great feature there.
Yeah,
There is good.
Please.
Okay.
Question. How about KubeCalc? How is it different? Because we do have that as an open source, right? And it also does IRR.
Thank you. I'm glad you're asking. Exactly. There is an open source Python script that can do this. But I think there's like 3 or 4 key differences between the open source KubeCalc script and the calculation engine. The first one is that this is a serverless function that you can just use. KubeCalc you have to set up, right? You have to install Python. You have to install TM1 Pi and run the script. And yes, and that's the first difference. The second one is a performance and scalability, because KubeCalc, it always works on a source view, but it requires you to provide like one time series. So if you wanted to do the same calculation with KubeCalc, you would have to run this not just 5 times, right? But because we also run the IRR by store, you'd have to run this like 20 times. And it's simply unusable if you have a very large data set. And what happened in projects at KubeWise over the years is that if you're doing large IRR calculations, then people would resort to custom Python scripts. So I think KubeCalc is like great. It's very easy on like small problems. It doesn't scale so well. And also kubecalc doesn't give you the cell annotations.
Okay. That's good.
All right, so based on our results here of IRR, then it seems as though the bottom three managers are the three that we would want to be setting up to run, to be promoted for our stores. So I believe management has given us some guidance that they wanted to close 2 stores and then also to promote these bottom 3 managers. So how do we bring that in?
So we happen to maintain a CSV file. That's not quite correct. It's actually an Excel file in SharePoint. And here we've been playing with a few variations for the new restructuring. And so what we can do now is we can close London and Miami. And I'm not going to do this now, but you could play more. You could add additional attributes in here, and you could assign these 3 managers for the 3 new regions: Asia, Airport, and North America. So this is just an Excel file in a SharePoint. And what we can do now, using Atmosphere and using alternate hierarchies, is that we can load this into TM1 as an alternate hierarchy. So not destroying or interrupting the existing structures that already exist. In this tab, we see on the left the existing hierarchy, which is the stores by manager, and on the right, this is an alternative hierarchy, which is currently just a simple total. Now, using the Atmosphere SharePoint integration, we can load the Excel file from SharePoint and build out the hierarchy directly. And again, there are different versions. You can go about this, right? We have these different run modes. So one would be, what I'm going to show is like updating straight the dimension. So Atmosphere is going to parse the Excel file, it's going to understand it, and it's going to update your dimension. But if you would like to do like a more modular approach, then what we could also do is take the Excel file and create a CSV file in TM1 so that it can then be consumed by a TI.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, thanks. And it does work with TM1 in the IBM Cloud. This modular CSV-based approach, it would work with V12. And here on this TI, we have to provide 4 arguments. What is the name of the file? Which dimension do we want to update? Which hierarchy do we want to update? And again, we've got this unwind parameter, whether or not the existing hierarchy should be unwinded. And in our case, the answer is true.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we've had pinpoints in the past where to have an Excel file that people are updating, and then how do you make sure that it's converted to a CSV? So the fact that it's just the straight Excel file in SharePoint is a big win instead of having to worry about that conversion to a CSV.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, go ahead.
The other thing I notice here, right, is that this is a ragged hierarchy, right? It's not level, that we have the closed stores have a different number of levels, but Atmosphere is handling that without us having to do anything special. Is that right?
Absolutely. Atmosphere can take a file format like this, which would, as we can see, London rolls into closed, and then closed rolls into all stores restructured. So this is, like I said, it's ragged or unbalanced. You could also have multi-parent relationships in this sort of like Excel file format, and Atmosphere just takes care of that. I just saw a question there. It doesn't require a TM1 version 12. This works with version 11.
Yes, and just maybe just to go a bit further on that, as we it's a great question, because we have been talking about version 12 a bit at Innovation Week. But yeah, Atmosphere is fully supported by version 11 as on PA Cloud, and obviously version 12 on PA SaaS, which is on AWS. So again, the deployability of this and the flexibility of this this integration offering, is really attractive for a lot of customers who are on Planning Analytics Cloud or version 11, which is on IBM Cloud. So just to clarify on that point there. And there's some other good questions about do we integrate with Google Cloud or Oracle Cloud and things of that nature? The short answer is there's on the website, which we'll kind of share in a second here. We have some integration endpoints that we've currently developed as part of our innovation lab and our launch today. But as Marius is about to share, maybe Marius, from a roadmap perspective, I guess it's the integration endpoints are kind of endless. But what would you say are some of the top ones that we'll be addressing and that are currently in the works right now?
Of course, I can't promise anything,
course, yeah.
but we're looking at Workday, NetSuite, Google BigQuery. We have a lot of ideas, but we are also open to inspirations. Like if you have a real need, please comment, please let us know. And we are open to reprioritize. And we've built out this Atmosphere platform, which took us a while. And with that platform built, it is much easier to build new functions. So we can build new functions with reasonable effort, and we're thinking to get a lot more done this year. And please let us know if you have ideas or wishes.
And some of the ones that kind of keep popping up, and appreciate the question there. Obviously Workday, Databricks, Snowflake, SAP, Oracle. And again, like in similar ways to how we incubated and innovated with Power Connect, we partnered with one of our cloud-based customers there in Texas, as an example, and we did a co-collaboration with them. And we did that for several months to build Power Connect and integrating planning analytics with Power BI, and they're a PA cloud site, about 2,500 users. And we did a co-development effort there, it's been really successful for that customer. So similarly, as Marius is saying, please reach out to CubeWise either through our website or through your local office. And if you do have an integration endpoint that is really important to you, we do want to hear that feedback, because we want to kind of put that, based on that feedback, that will kind of prioritize what we do from our roadmap perspective. So again, I really do appreciate some of those questions there. And I guess conceptually, all data sources, all cloud-based data sources will be included. Again, it could be included in the Atmosphere library, subject to time and demand and things of that nature. So that's why we're very excited about this, is that the opportunities here for rapid deployment, rapid integration that's scalable, that's tested, and it's repeatable is really exciting, I think, for the planning analytics community, and kind of and changing how we do some of these things. Excellent. Marius, anything else you'd like to kind of say here, or any questions around security? I know security comes up quite a bit as it relates to these kind of considerations. So maybe, I don't know, Nicholas and Marius, what would you like to share about security as it relates to Atmosphere?
I can go first, and Nico, maybe you
Please.
just complete my answer. So Atmosphere is powered by AWS. We're using all the standard AWS building blocks. So for instance, we're using the AWS API gateway for the SSL encryption, for the load balancing, for the API keys, for the routing to the Lambda function. The Lambda function itself is like we said, it's stateless and serverless. So it doesn't by its nature persist or memorize information. And that itself is a very secure architecture. We're using HTTPS, specifically TLS 1.2 for the communication. That is very secure. And yeah, if there are any questions specific to security, happy to answer those. Or Nico, if you would like to add anything, please go ahead.
I think you summed it up pretty well. It's as secure as it could possibly be, and of course, if your IT department security or cybersecurity needs further questions to be answered, please reach out. But we build it. We spend a lot of the time not building functions, but making sure that this is robust and it's deployable and it's secure. Building the functions is going to be the easy part, but this is why we spend a lot of time. It's important. We understand that when you talk about cloud to cloud, security is key. So we make sure that that's there.
Indeed, and like I said, but both, and again, security with these kind of discussions can be quite a deep conversation, and as you said, a very important one. And so again, if there is interest out there, please reach out to us. And we obviously have security FAQ documents and all of those things that can be shared as we kind of progress the conversation. And I guess additionally, if people are interested, this is available for evaluation and deployment. Again, we are looking to incubate this in the North American market initially, but again, that for those of you who are on the line, because I know there's some folks in Europe right now, and there's people in Australia that are joining, and in Asia, please reach out to your local CubeWise office and share that interest, because that is really helpful for us as we kind of continue to incubate this and hopefully bring it to market more formally. But yeah, that's we have to incubate it first and innovate. So looking forward to some of that. Okay,
James, let me answer some of those questions that just came in.
Excellent, thank you.
Someone asked here if this is deployed via AWS data centers in Europe. So the answer is yes, but because currently it's in Innovation Lab stage. So later this year, we hopefully grow out of Innovation Lab stage, just like CubeWise did with Power Connect, and then we make it available. And when that day comes, yes, we will host it in your region in EU. In EU Center EU1, all of these AWS regions that are available. Someone else asked if it can work with AWS, but network is restricted by firm. So what we can do is we can write to an S3 bucket that is in your organization, but then your CloudOps team needs to grant permission to the Atmosphere AWS account. But there are possibilities to go like cross account in AWS. We are exploring to make this available as self-hosted, but this is something for later this year. And then someone else asks if we can dump the entire cube data in Snowflake. I'll say that depends on the cube. If it's a 100 gigabyte cube, I'd say no. If it's a reasonably sized cube, yes. And I think Atmosphere is probably one of the fastest ways to do it, because of the fact that it scales so well, right? And that it reads out of TM1 and then it does all the work somewhere else. So I'd say there's a good chance, but depending on your cube.
Yeah,
I hope that answers the questions.
Yeah, it does, and I guess there's considerations, in terms of data volume and things like that, and that's a great question there about the deployability of this outside of North America. As I said, at the moment it's being incubated in the North America market, and potentially in the fullness of time it could be available outside of that. But again, this is part of the new Innovation Lab approach here at CubeWise, where we are trying to bring new innovations that are happening at CubeWise to market quicker by creating the Innovation Lab and incubating them, and then evaluating their deployability. So similar to how we did Power Connect, which has been a really big success there for CubeWise. Excellent. Now I know we're coming up on time, and we do want to give a little bit of time back because I know everyone's quite busy. As I said here, these recordings will be available shortly after the webinar, and I guess also on demand. So please feel free to share those with your colleagues who might have unfortunately missed today's session. Additionally, please reach out to us if you are interested in having a further conversation around this, because I know we have quite a number of customers right now where we're engaged in evaluations, and we have customer references as well for this in the North American market. So that's just as a point of reference there. I guess kind of as a quick summary about what's next in Innovation Week. So we're kind of just wrapping up our halfway point here, and then again, tomorrow we're going to have Nicholas and Rose on the mic with a few of our other team members, and they'll be kind of diving deep into an increasingly popular topic within the planning analytics community, and that's the DevOps discussion. And how can we do better, and what are our techniques and options in terms of deploying planning analytics code and TM1 code as well, of course, in a more structured, more tested, governed, auditable manner. So Nicholas is going to be demoing some really great stuff tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And then kind of, as I said, to wrap it up on Friday, we'll be talking about how fast is fast enough when loading data into planning analytics, and obviously cube to cube data processing as well. So that's a topic which is an enduring topic. I think we always wanted to kind of almost instantaneous data transfer, but how do we achieve that and how do we measure that? So looking forward to that discussion. So on that, I want to thank the CubeWise team, Rose, Marius, and Nicholas for their participation today. It's been great to kind of launch this with you all, Atmosphere. And again, thanks for everyone for the questions and joining us today. And I hope you have a really enjoyable rest of your day wherever you are. And yeah, for the rest of us, thank you again, and keep doing good, TM1. Thank you.
Thank you.